Madam President, and thank you, colleagues. I rise today, unsurprisingly, to urge a no vote on this as I did last time. I want to start just by saying that I think it's important to note that this is not, as it has been portrayed in some places, a question of whether or not you approve of having encampments near schools and daycare centers. Nobody wants encampments near schools and daycare centers. Nobody wants encampments anywhere. This is a question of whether or not we are going to put our energy and our focus into a strategy that manages where encampments are by moving them from block to block, or whether we're going to put our time, our energy, our funds, our attention into ending homeless encampments by ending homelessness and moving people indoors. Now some people will say, well, why can't we do both? And I'd suggest that we don't have a particularly good track record of doing both. Next slide, please. As we speak, news is leaking out that Project Roomkey is coming to an end. And thousands of people are at risk of being put back out onto the streets into homelessness. And even if we manage to find a place for everybody who is in PRK now, so they don't wind up back out on the streets, they will be taking the slots of people who are on the streets now who otherwise would be moving in. At the same time, next slide, the LA Times reported last week that the city of Los Angeles is doing a really bad job at using the federal emergency housing vouchers. We have been given, loaves and fishes by the federal government, and we are doing a poor job distributing them. We also know that around the state, next slide please, that there are eviction moratoriums are ending, rents are going up, and evictions are going up. Even here in the city of Los Angeles, let's make no mistake, evictions have continued, and rent is illegally going up in places, and more people are being forced out onto the streets. So with all of that happening, and I'll be fair, most of that, the PRK news and the emergency housing voucher news happened subsequent to the council's first vote. In light of that, we have a choice to either focus on solving those problems, or we can go to the final slide, go from having a couple hundred places where people are prohibited from sleeping and lying, to having another 1,900 or 2,000 more. The effect that has, as we're seeing in Los Angeles County, people are literally being forced into the desert. Forced into the desert without services, without heat, even without the camps that Donald Trump is talking about. This is what is happening. The city has not been able to do what people here call a balanced approach, has not been able to do the solving homelessness and the enforcing that ordinances like this propose. We need to have a relentless, exclusive focus on getting people indoors. This ordinance is based on the false premise that the problem is that people are refusing to go indoors and we have a plethora of opportunities for them. We don't have a place for 60% of the people who are on the street, and the spaces with PRK ending are dwindling. The spaces available are actually shrinking. But more importantly, not more importantly, but equally importantly, this is a failed strategy on its own merits. There are 4118 signs around the city of Los Angeles. I think there are 300-400 different zones. Under most of them, there are still tents and there are still encampments. Even by its own measure, this doesn't work. I don't see how it's going to work any better by adding another 1,900 or 2,000 different locations. This is, I argue, a distraction from where our focus needs to be, and it drains time and energy and money from where it needs to be. Does it help end homelessness by moving encampments from block to block? No. Does it help anybody by moving an encampment from right next to a school to the sidewalk where a kid walks to school? I don't think so. Does it, I wasn't expecting the call and response, but does it help 17,000 homeless LAUSD students to approve this? No. Does this help get people indoors, or does it help to stop the fact that 5 people a day are dying on our streets? Does this help increase housing supply or make it cheaper or faster to get people off the streets? It doesn't. And the final thing I want to say, I wanted to just respond to something I heard last time we discussed this. There have been comments made by some that if you oppose this ordinance, you support people living and dying on the streets. And I need to respond to that because it's an outrageously cynical argument, and it's an absurdly Orwellian argument to say that. To say that people who are saying focus on housing, focus on shelter, focus on services are somehow wanting people to stay in encampments. That is not the case. What people who are voting no on this and arguing no on this are saying is we're refusing to accept that saying you can't be homeless means that you somehow magically won't be homeless. We are refusing to equate the efforts to make homelessness less visible with efforts to end homelessness. This ordinance does not solve homelessness, and I argue it is an incredible waste of time and energy and resources from the effort to do so, and that is where our attention should be exclusively focused. I urge a no vote.
The next speaker is Ms. Rahman. The next speaker is Ms. Rahman. Ms. Rahman. Ms. Rahman. Ms. Rahman. Ms. Rahman, are you going to speak?
Great. I also rise to speak against this, and I know I've already spoken on this item twice, but I really just wanted to take a moment to reiterate today why I'm voting against this ordinance for anyone who's tuning in for the first time. And I want to echo a lot of what you said, Mike. I'm the parent of 6-year-old twins. I want them to feel safe in the city. It's something I think about every single day. I also feel very, very strongly that as a body, we need to be making effective policy here. We have to stop lying to our constituents. We have to stop making promises that the city simply cannot deliver on. We cannot pretend to parents who are desperate for change in Los Angeles that we can snap our fingers, pass a law, and end homelessness in LA by making it illegal to be homeless in a lot of places in LA. In fact, we have a year of experience, as you said, on over 100 sites since the earlier version of the anti-camping ordinance was passed. And in most of those encampments, what we've seen is that they haven't moved at all, or that they've moved 500 feet down the street. Neither of those are options that will create more safety for the students in our schools. We need to work towards real solutions backed by real resources that will result in lasting change on our streets. And the thing that's preventing us from having lasting change on our streets is not the lack of laws dictating where a person can and can't be homeless in our city. We actually have plenty of those already on the books that were never suspended during COVID. It's not having the resources that we need to end homelessness in Los Angeles. I don't want to see encampments around schools, around daycares, or anywhere else in LA. Homelessness is a humanitarian crisis. And that's why I want to encourage parents, school officials who were here and testified about these issues, don't let us off the hook. Don't let us pretend that we passed this law and suddenly the situation on our streets is going to change. We've actually done that for decades here in Los Angeles. and the situation on our streets has only gotten worse. We have to put a system into place where we are building, for the first time in LA's history, the number of shelter beds and housing units that we need in order to address homelessness effectively. This ordinance does not move us closer to that. Thank you.
Mr.